Hi, this is Injury Recap, and this is NFL's worst career-ending injuries explained, part 1. Alright, first up we have Jermichael Finley for the Green Bay Packers. As you can see, Jermichael Finley makes a reception over here, and he's going down to the ground and makes a head-on collision with the Cleveland Brown safety, Gibson. He's fallen flat on his head without bracing, so the first thing you'd be thinking is a concussion. The play stopped over here as they want to have a look at what's going on. As you can see, he is talking, so which means that he's able to breathe and he is conscious. But I probably don't like there that he's moving his head a little bit too much. Need to protect the head over here. Let's have a look at the replay. So he goes for the reception, catches the ball, looks to go to ground, and right here he has a head-on collision with Gibson. Has uncontrolled fall, so you'd be thinking a concussion, definitely at this stage. And what's probably more distressing, as you can see here, is that he's laying motionless. What we've actually found a bit later on is that he was actually paralyzed at the time and reported having no feeling in the legs. If someone was motionless after a big hit like that, the first thing you want to make sure is that he's breathing, which we saw through the replay that he was. We assume it's a spinal cord injury until proven otherwise. If we're a trainer and we're running on and he's telling us that he's paralyzed and he can't feel his legs, we're definitely assuming that something's happened to the spinal cord. In that scenario, the trainers and the medical staff will perform what's called a log roll and have him put onto a stretcher and send him straight to hospital to be assessed. Thankfully, Jermichael Finley eventually regained movement in his arm and his legs, meaning that the messages are still being sent to those areas from his brain. Eventually was found that his spinal cord was not severed, it was just bruised. Still very dangerous and still something that ended his career. Next up is Johnny Knox, as you can see. And Johnny Knox over here is the person who has caught the ball. He's looking to step his opposition. He's made a good step, but is unfortunately right here lost the ball. He's diving for a loose ball over here. That's Johnny Knox. And this is the opposition, Anthony Hargrove. And I think both of them are going to dive for the ball, and right there. Disaster. I thought there's a big pile up and it gets a bit messy over here. The play is continuing on our right over here, but as you can see, Johnny Knox on the left over here is laying motionless on the floor. It's a bit unclear to see what's happened, but if we take a look closer, Johnny Knox over here, you can see he's adjusting his helmet, which means he is conscious and he is breathing, which is the first thing you want to check. Unfortunately, I wouldn't want him to be moving his neck so much after what's happened. Thankfully, the medical staff come over, and as you can see, they're stabilizing his neck in this position over there. Let's have a closer look at the replay over here and see what happens. So Johnny Knox over here is trying to step someone. He loses possession of the ball and he goes in to dive for the ball. And Anthony Hargrove's head over here makes head-on collision with his head over here. It's a bit hard to see as his play is blocking the way, but as you can see right here, his neck's actually in decent alignment, but it's his back that we're more worried about. Right here. So what's actually happened over here is that he's found to have a thoracolumbar fracture and a dislocation, an unusual injury, but one of the worst he could have received. Your thoracic lumbar junction is where your thoracic spine, your mid-back, joins in with your lumbar spine, your low back. And this junction is responsible for a large amount of rotation. As you can see, the spine's role is to protect the spinal cord, and if you had enough force placed onto the spine, where it's been fractured and dislocated, you can expect a fair bit of shear force and damage onto the spinal cord. Unfortunately, these nerve injuries take an incredibly long time to recover, and to this day, it is very likely Johnny still has several deficits in his lower limb function and movement. Here we have Reggie Brown, a similar mechanism of injury to Jermichael Brown. As you can see, the Jets player goes for a run, and the blue player over here is Reggie Brown. He's going for a tackle, but he doesn't really notice the Jets linesman over here falling over onto his head. As you can see, Reggie Brown comes out second best. He's laying motionless on the floor, but the players don't seem to notice. The ref does, stops the game, and medical team will soon run out onto the field. What we've actually found out over here is that at the time, Reggie Brown was actually unable to breathe. If you're a medical staff or you're part of the medical staff running out, the first thing you want to check, as I mentioned before, is whether the player or the person is breathing. Because it doesn't matter what the spinal injury is or will do if the person's going to be dead. If you happen to find that the person is not breathing, call 000 and to the best of your ability, perform a log roll, stabilize his neck, and perform CPR. Chest compressions, chest compressions, chest compressions. If we look at a bit of a closer replay of the incident, you can see on the left over here we have Reggie Brown. This is the falling linesman Lamont Burns, and this is the Jets player we talked about taking a dive. Reggie does not notice the falling linesman and unfortunately gets his head in the wrong spot and collides into the linesman's back. What we found out after is that Reggie Brown was fortunately able to get to the hospital where they had found he had displaced his C1 and C2, which was then fused. This makes sense as to why he was struggling to breathe. The phrenic nerve, which innervates your diaphragm, originates from the levels C3 to C5. So if your C1 and C2 levels were affected, then it would also affect your breathing. Thankfully, it seems like he's doing well, with the only limitation being that he's finding it a bit difficult to rotate his head, which is not surprising considering that the C1 and C2 provides around 50% of your neck's rotation. So if it is fused, you can imagine that a lot of your neck movement will disappear. Okay, here we have Jabari Greer on the defending side, the black, looking to contest the ball right up over here. Lands very awkwardly on his leg, comes out second best, and lands on the floor clutching his knee. Let's look at a better replay of this. As you can see over here, as Jabari Greer lands flat on his foot, but as you can see his left ankle rolls out to the side. So that's his lateral ligaments, definitely gone. As you can see over here, his knee has a large varus moment. A varus moment and valgus moment are commonly used terms you hear for the knee. A valgus moment to knee is when your knee is forced inwards, and a varus moment is when your knee is forced outwards. If we look at this injury again, you can see he lands on his left ankle and his knee goes out. You can also say that from experience, a lot of players in the NFL get their ankles really well taped, so it's very likely that his lateral ankle ligaments were fine, but because he had no movement in his lateral ankle, all the force when he landed moved up one level onto his knee. The resulting injury over here was a torn posterior lateral corner and a torn ACL and PCL. He's also very likely damaged his meniscus and his knee joint. Right here. Very strong varus moment. Tearing even one of these can be detrimental to your season. Tearing all three of them will require extremely extensive surgery and rehabilitation. It is, however, not impossible to come back from this sort of injury. In the NBA, you have Sean Livingston, who underwent something similar and was able to play out the rest of his career. It is no doubt incredibly difficult to do so. Thank you all for watching today. If you'd like to see part 2 of this, please let me know in the comment section below. I love doing videos on sports medicine, and making these sort of videos is a small hobby of mine. If you'd like to support my channel, it would mean the absolute world to me if you would hit that subscribe button down below and give me a like. Thanks again, and have a nice day.